Welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show, and it is show number 225. Happy to be live with you here on Facebook, proud member of the Education Podcast Network, VoiceEd Radio Canada, or wherever you are tuning in. iTunes, leave us a positive comment, leave us a question, and we would love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. It is show number 225. Super pumped. This is someone I've known for many years, but I've never really got a chance to interact with him. And just talking with him a couple minutes off air, Kenny White from Providence College in Rhode Island. I can't wait. He is the strength and conditioning coach. He is the director of sports performance at Providence College, and he's from Staten Island. Me and Kenny, hoops guys from Staten Island. We got a million guys in common. But we're going to talk a lot more than just basketball and sports today because he's doing amazing work, keeping those athletes fit, keeping them in line, and certainly keeping Providence College on the map. I do want to thank today's sponsor, the Coaching and Leadership Journal. Here is the October version, and I know my virtual background kind of throws that off, but here's the journal here. It's got a bunch of pages, right? It's thick. And this is actually how Kenny and I got brought together. Kenny's a subscriber to the Coaching and Leadership Journal and use that discount code Murata20 for a 20% discount. Kenny, make sure you put that in there, get a little off. But this is my friend Dan Spanauer. It's a monthly journal. You get it. It's got a variety of articles, leadership, humor, inspiration. So check them out. And I want to thank them as a sponsor. And really, we're going to kick off the show about that. Because as a leader, right, we're constantly looking for things of self-improvement. How can I get better? What's a resource I use? What's a tool you use? What's something? I'm going to learn some tips and tricks from Kenny today. And the journal is something I subscribe to. I love it. I get it every week. Well, Kenny gets the journal too. And somehow Dan Spanauer says, I got to connect these two. And Dan put me in touch with Kenny. And here we go, where we have a lot of connections and we're going to do some work together. But it is that step towards growing. It's that step towards getting yourself better that helped me make this connection. So as a leader, make sure you are doing those things, reading journals, listening to blogs, stepping outside your comfort zone, because you never know where those connections are going to lead to. So we will start with that. But let's bring Kenny in here. He's nice enough. They had practice today. All the way from Rhode Island. Kenny, welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond.
I'm fired up. Thanks for having me, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
It's game time. I don't know when you're going to start shooting, but we're excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm a pass first guy, though.
Kenny, amazing. Our backgrounds here, all these years out of Staten Island, Catholic schools, kind of growing up in the same era. You were a little bit before me, but so nice to be able to make this connection now here on the podcast.
And it started with that Coaching and Leadership Journal, which is really, really good. I get it every month. I disperse it to some of my colleagues and some of my college teammates. I mail it out. And you mentioned earlier about trying to improve. And Coach John Wooden said it best. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. And that's where that journal is really, really comes in. It's the older you get, it's less about the X's and O's and more about how do you reach your athletes? How do you reach your students? What buttons to push? And just different tactics and techniques. And that's how the journal connected us. I read your books. So.
And we'll talk a little bit about that because there's a lot of people connected. But let's start with you, Kenny. You're the strength and conditioning coach and the director of sports performance at Providence College. And you're in your 20th year. So tell me, how do you feel year number 20 there?
I feel great. It goes really, really fast. I remember when Derek Jeter retired. He said, I played 20 years, but it went fast. And that's kind of how I feel here. And it's a really, really great school, great place to work, great coaches, great college campus atmosphere. It went really fast because it's a great working environment. And I've had great student athletes and great athletic administration, athletic directors. I'm standing in our latest facility. It's a brand new basketball weight room. So we've built 3 new weight rooms in 20 years. So that helped it. It went much faster because we were always building new facilities. It doesn't feel like 20 years.
Yeah.
Because every year you're getting freshmen. You know, as an educator, as a high school principal, as a teacher, every year you get new students. So it kind of starts the cycle over.
And I heard this saying, right? I've done it 20 years, or I've done 1 year 20 different times, right? And to keep yourself fresh and new. Kenny, this is really starting to feel almost like normal again without COVID, 2-3 years now. What are you seeing now different in your athletes? Are there some more precautions you have to look at with kids that had COVID? Are kids more out of shape? What are you seeing on your end?
Well, I think most of that was a couple of years ago. 2 summers ago, there was no summer training. The school year ended early. So I think at that time we were worried about athletes being a little bit out of shape, deconditioned, not having access to facilities, not having access to the best nutrition. But that was a couple of years ago. So most of our athletes now are pretty much all caught up, and most of the health protocols are just controlling it, right? They test symptomatically now at our level. They only test if you have symptoms of an illness. But I think that the athletes, more than anything now, that they appreciate more than they might have in 2019. When that was taken away,
Yeah.
I think they appreciate adults like you and I, the coaches, the mentors, the facilities that they had access to, and then all of a sudden it was gone. It was a Thursday, I think it was March 12th. I was in New York City with our team. We had the 2:30 quarterfinal game in the Big East tournament. We were going to play, and we were on the bus en route to the Garden, and they pulled us off the bus because the game got canceled. The Creighton St. John's game, they cut off at halftime. The noon game, it was the last college basketball game played that year, and that's how it ended for our seniors. So our juniors, our sophomores, I really think they came back with an appreciation of, damn, this isn't a given.
Yeah.
The facilities. So most of that, getting the athletes back in shape, that was a couple of years ago. Now it's pretty much it feels very normalized.
So tell me, Kenny, how do you design your day, right? Obviously, you're fit yourself, and I know exercise and diet is part of your life. But how do you design your day? What does a typical day look like? I know you just started basketball practice there, so walk me through a day.
Well, today our first basketball players came in to weight train with me at 7 a.m. And by that time, my workout was already done. I had already done my walk, my personal workout. I already read the newspapers. So at 7 a.m. comes, it's almost like lunchtime for me. But we had guys at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. They came in between their classes or before their classes. So when practice started today, the strength training was already completed. So when practice just about ended about 15 minutes ago, then they could focus on recovery, getting in the whirlpools, getting stretched, getting ready for the next practice, and then they'll have dinner in our facility. So my typical day would be most of the work is done before they go on the court. Sometimes after practice, but we're more concerned now about getting ready for the next practice, getting ready for the next workout. And that's really recovery, nutrition, stretching, getting in the cold tubs, and getting a good meal, getting a good hydration. So our guys are really used to training in the morning, lifting, running, getting extra shots, getting extra skill work, and it's kind of our routine. And when I'm not training them, Andrew, I'm spending time designing their programs. Because the design of the workout takes a lot longer than doing the workout.
Wow.
Training you is different from training a guy who's 6'10".
Yeah.
Training a senior is different from training a freshman. Maybe a guy has an injury or an injury history. Maybe a guy's recovering. So you try to find out what that guy needs. And most importantly is I watch them play. How does that guy move? Can he move better? How does he jump? How does he land? What's his lateral movement? So you try to watch him play, and how can we use the weight room to help them on the court? Because that's the only reason they should be lifting. Does it transfer to the court? And not just basketball, does it transfer to the field of play? Whatever kind of physical training you're doing, there has to be some carryover to the baseball field, to the swimming pool, to the ice hockey rink. Your training has to prepare them for competition and also try to keep them more durable, keep them out of the training, keep them healthy.
I've watched some videos on you, Kenny, over the years, and you use the word durability a lot, right? To be able to stay on the court. You played in every one of your games, in the Hall of Fame there, your career in Vermont, right? You didn't miss a game.
Thank you. Well,
how much knowledge? I mean, you're dealing with the thoroughbreds too. You're dealing with the top athletes. How much knowledge do they already have about fitness and stretching and hydration? Or you really got to teach them because they're still young kids when you're getting them?
I think we have to teach them more the non-physicals, proper nutrition, proper sleep, hydration, recovery. It runs the gamut. You have some guys who come in, they've had some private trainers, personal trainers, and some guys have had nothing. But they're very athletic and they're gifted and they're highly skilled, but they've never weight trained, never been on a formal program. But most of the guys and the gals at this level want a formal program. They want some structure. The real good athletes want to be coached. They want a plan. And sometimes they want to know the why. Sometimes you might have to explain why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. So you get even more buy-in if they know why they're doing it. But it runs the gamut. I think what you see more now than when we played is there's a lot more games under their belt when you get them. 3-4 games on an AAU summer circuit weekend. Just lots more games, formal games. We might have played more pickup games and playground games, but they've had a lot more structured games and a lot less practice.
Yeah.
We used to practice all week for one CIO game on a weekend. Now they might play 4 games on a weekend. The games mean nothing because they lose one, they play an hour later.
Play an hour.
So
yeah.
You got to find that. I might have an 18-year-old freshman whose body's 25 because of all the pounding and the overuse. So you got to find that balance. And that's what makes coaching fun.
Kenny, how about us as a regular person? I'm not a Division I athlete, but clearly you have a background here. What kind of tips would you give to someone who's not a Division I athlete on being healthy? Right, I got a lot of educators watching this show. They want to bring them best selves to their work. What would you say is some of the best hacks you could offer to the non-Division I athlete?
You try to get a routine. Try to structure your day where you put exercise in that part of your day. And if you're unsure of what to do or how to do it, find someone who does. Maybe make it that investment. We buy clothes, we buy cars. Maybe I got to invest in my health and fitness. If I don't know much about it, maybe seek a professional. But even just simple as going for a walk, making that part of your routine. And it does help if you have a support system, your partner, or a group of friends, or work out and support you if you're trying to get fit again. But nothing beats just going out for a walk. Get the body moving. Get the body moving.
You mentioned that's something that's in your routine. Also, you walk in the mornings?
Pretty much every day, often twice a day. Wow. Some of it is for physical, for exercise, and some of it is the mental exercise. Yeah. Really, really creative when I'm walking outside. You leave the phone, you just go for a walk.
We got a lot of things in common, Kenny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or go for a swim. Nobody can bother you when you're in the water. Sure. You don't get an email, you don't get a text, you don't get a call when you're in the pool. But I always try to do it the very first part of my day. The best part of my day often is that first hour or two when I'm just getting my exercise, my workout, clearing the head, thinking, planning. And then at night, I'll do one more just to almost, if it's a nice night out, why rush home?
Yeah.
Get some fresh air.
Kenny, the older we get, I know our diet has a lot to play into it. Give me a percentage, right? I'm 47. Is it the percentage of exercise, the kind of exercise, is the food? What if I had a math word problem here of my fitness? Is it 50% exercise and 50% diet? Is it 75-25? Does it change as we get older? Does my question make any sense?
Well, I think most of us overestimate how much we exercise and underestimate how much we eat. Most of us. We think we work out a lot more than we do. We think we eat a lot less than we do. But we eat a lot more than we exercise. So I think that the nutrition part is incredibly important. Portion size. I just think you have to get a good balance. But you could do something every day. You could walk every day. But do I have a Ben & Jerry's afterwards? Do I eat a full pizza pie? I mean, some of it's basic common sense. Just
Yeah.
portion control, a little bit of discipline. I tell the athletes to eat a colorful plate. Are there reds? Are there greens? Are there different colors on their plate? That means they got fruits and vegetables. If it's just brown, where it's a burger and fries, and it's just there's no color, you're gonna more likely to have your various nutrients, vitamins, if you have a colorful plate of food.
Wow. Wow.
But I don't
Kenny,
think there's necessarily a percentage of diet, workout, sleep. I just think you try to get a good routine. Start out walking and slowly build up, slowly build up. Same way I train my athletes. It's start out with minimal weight training and slowly build up your volume. And the first thing you want to do, I tell Andrew, is adults, build up the frequency of workouts. 2 days a week to 3 days a week to 4 days a week. Then you add the volume, 20-minute walk, 25-minute walk, 30-minute walk. Lastly, worry about the intensity, the speed, the intensity of the weights. Most people do the intensity first. And they either break down or they, and then also you have to be realistic. It takes a while to improve fitness, and most people, if they don't see the improvement on the scale, they give up. You have to have realistic goals, especially at our age.
Yeah.
Just short improvements, have some short-term goals that are achievable, but it helps if you have a support system. And if you have a plan, you have a routine.
Yeah. It all makes sense there. Kenny, my guess is the lights were on motion there and they went out.
Yeah, motion sensor, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm standing in one place.
All right. Well, we can still see you. I don't know if they're going to go back on.
Yeah, the lights, but you can see me.
We can see it. Yeah. But yeah, it's a
There's
little
no more
darker.
light switches. It's all technological. There's no more keys. You tap the fancy ID card and it opens the doors.
We need your girl Sue back there taking care of business.
Yes, our basketball administrative assistant set me up on this. For the listeners, I'm not a technological guy. I needed help with this. I just got my first iPhone in June of 2022. No technology. I tell my athletes, this is the best computer chip.
Yeah.
This is the best computer chip. But
Kenny,
I'm learning, but I'm trying.
I know you're humble and you don't talk about it too much in front of your athletes and stuff. But as someone who was watching from the sidelines, let's talk about your career a little bit. You were a pretty good player yourself, but you set a world record, 75 points in a high school game back in 1997.
1988.
Oh, sorry, 88. Sorry, I don't know, I had the wrong year.
And in New York State, that was the first year of the three-point line in high school basketball.
Was it really?
The summer of '87, the New York State High School Athletic Association adopted the three-point line. So lots of guys could shoot from that far out and make those shots in the playground, but it was all 2 points. So I just benefited from my senior year having that three-point line.
Walk me back. Bring some memories back there.
Well, it's not something I really talk about. Not something I really look back on. It's nice that people bring it up, but that was just one game in my career, and it has stuck with me because that number has staying power.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that'll probably be the first sentence in my obituary in the Staten Island newspapers. Hey, the guy who scored 75 points.
I remember the advance. It was such a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal everywhere, really. WFAN, I was on WFAN, CBS, New York Times, USA Today. It was fun because it involved my teammates.
Sure.
And they were involved, and they were just a bigger part of it. You can't score that many points unless someone's giving you the ball.
The crowd was booing your teammates if they shot.
Some of my teammates should have gotten booed. But they were really making the extra pass to get me shots because I think throughout my career I was giving them the ball.
Yeah.
And I made a couple baskets, and it kind of it's a different time then. That right now, that would have probably been viral at halftime.
Sure.
They would have been live streamed while I was doing it. There's one old VCR tape of that game that, most people didn't believe it actually when it first happened. My dad was a high school coach. He came home from his game that night and did not believe me. My brother did not believe me, so they had to call the Staten Island Advance to verify it with the sports department.
So funny.
Because I wasn't a shooter. I really wasn't a shooter or a scorer. I averaged under 20 points a game in high school. Because I was really a point guard, get the ball to the open man. I had one night that has kind of stuck with me a little bit. But up here, no one knows about it. I don't talk about it. They'd have to, like Casey Stengel said, you could look it up.
When did you know you had something special going on that night, though? Was it halftime? Was it after the first quarter? Like, when did you know, like, I got a hot hand tonight?
Well, every day, every game day, I'd always go and shoot in the gym around 3 o'clock, right after class by myself. And I was really, really cooking. I go around the horn, take a ton of shots, different spots, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and I had it cooking. But then in the pregame layups, I made nothing. And I missed my first 2 shots, and the third shot rimmed in. But I think I ended up with 22 points in the first quarter. And that was more than my season average. But at halftime, it was kind of, it was 40 points at halftime. So the guys were like, well, at halftime, it was pretty unique. But we won the game. That was really more important.
Sure. And amazing, right? The connections. Gary Prager, my supervisor, my friend as a refereed that game, who went on to referee in the Big East.
Yes. Yeah, and he said his arms are still tired from making the 3 points. And the gentleman whose record I broke, he said it in the 1960s by the name of Jerry Houston, who played at St. John's. Went to the same high school as my dad, lifelong friends with my dad. I broke his record. He had 69. He called our house the next night to congratulate me. And that's just a classy guy. Just the basketball New York community. And it was a fun stretch. It was a fun stretch. Obviously, high school doesn't get that kind of national media, New York City media exposure, especially on Staten Island. But it was nice that my teammates were involved. It was good for the school. And but we still had a lot of games left in the season, so you got to move on pretty quickly.
Yeah. And, overall, right, you're a Hall of Famer at Monsignor Farrell, Hall of Famer in Vermont College. Looking back at those things, right, it's nice to be recognized. What do you say about that now, Kenny, as in your position that you're helping lead young athletes, but being a Hall of Famer yourself? How does that make you feel?
Well, Monsignor Farrell was not an athletic Hall of Fame, which made it even a little extra meaningful. I was included in that Hall of Fame, not for sports, just for being a good citizen and just giving back to the high school. Monsignor Farrell does not have an athletic Hall of Fame, whereas University of Vermont was for athletics. So it's nice to be remembered, to have some kind of a lasting impact. It would have been nice to have some championship banners hanging in the gym, win a few more games, but it is nice to be remembered. And you don't know when you're playing that you're not playing for that.
Sure.
But it's nice to be recognized, and it's even nice when your teammates are there with you. I had teammates at both of those events. My coaches were at both of those events to celebrate together. Because John Wooden, I quote John Wooden a lot. He was the coach of the century, last century, the number one coach in all sports. John Wooden said, "Life is a united effort of many." Life is a united effort of many. Think of all the CYO coaches, the summer league coaches, and the people who just would parents who let you in the gym and supervise you, and just all those coaches, those faceless, nameless coaches and volunteers, and guys, older guys in the playground that encouraged you, made sure you played, got picked up in the games. But life is a united effort of many. So the Hall of Fame plaque and trophies, there's a lot of other people's hands on that. And that's what I try to impress upon the athletes. Today we warmed up, Andrew. It was our first practice. And something I told them the first day we met in the summer. If you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. So you do it together. And that's the best part of team sports like basketball and football. Team sports where it's guys and gals working together for one goal. And that's the best part of coaching, really, is can you help mold that team concept? Because the team concept stays with them when they're parents. It stays with them when they're older in their workforce. So you hope some of the lessons in the weight room go beyond the weight room, go beyond the basketball court. Because I've coached 20 years, but the college career is only 4. It's just one small phase of their life. But maybe some of those lessons in the leadership journal, in the classroom, in the weight rooms, maybe some of those lessons we can pass on to our students that maybe they pass on to their kids. Coach Al McGuire, the legendary Coach Al McGuire, Brooklyn, New York, said, help one kid at a time. Maybe he'll go back home and help another kid. In a generation, we'll have something. That's kind of why I coach. Maybe we can help the next generation.
Yeah, these are great quotes, Kenny. Very powerful, and you can tell that you're living it, right? You're not just saying these things; you're living these things and working with these kids. What would you say to the parents, Kenny?
Well, Benjamin Franklin said, "Well done is better than well said." And you try to, but by your deeds they shall know you. It says that in the Bible, right? By your deeds they shall know you. And the athletes know you care. I tell the young coaches, I tell the young coaches on this podcast, they're going to know that you care for them more than they care how much you know. Yeah. They're going to know right away that you care for them. Hey, this is a good person. This is a good coach. More than they really care how much X knows you. That'll come. Kids know who's genuine and who's not. They know pretty quickly.
Yeah, they say this the highest respect. They're like dogs. They'll sniff you out pretty quick.
They know. Yeah, they know. They know who the phonies are. And they also know who's there every day. You're there on a snow day. You're there on their worst day, on their best day. Yeah. Who's there after you lose? It's easy when you're winning. Who's there when it's tough? Who's there when you got a flat tire?
Kenny, what would you say to the parents, right? You got kids coming in. If we have parents listening here today, they have a high school athlete or a middle school athlete. What are some things that you would advise them, right? A lot of parents see their kids earning that D1 scholarship. But what would you say to them in the moment while their kids are playing middle school sports, high school sports?
I would say let the kid initiate it. Hey, I want to play Little League. I want to play basketball. Or, hey, I'd like to do some strength training. I think if it's being kind of driven by the athlete, particularly as they get a little bit older, instead of maybe pushing the kids towards an AAU basketball or summer baseball, if it's driven by the kid, maybe the parent stays in the background a little bit. My father coached 40 years, high school and college basketball. Wow. And I tell everybody his best coaching job is he never coached his kids. He was rarely at our games because he was coaching his own teams. He was very much in the background. And there was never any pressure. We never felt there was any pressure to produce, to perform, or even to participate. I think when they're very young, you may have to introduce your children to sports, sign them up for soccer, sign them up for basketball or track. But I think as they get a little older, ask them, hey, what do you want to play this year? Or And the research has proven this, Andrew, that most students give up sports in high school, most students because they're not having fun. Mm. So somewhere along the line, we're losing that fun. And we can't blame all that on the adults, but it definitely is adults. Youth sports is an adult-driven culture, and it's a financially driven culture. The playground athlete, the multiple sport athlete is this, it's rare now. Almost non-existent, the playgrounds would be packed with multiple different age groups. And now that weekend is spent traveling to some tournament. And I just think if the kid's going to get a scholarship, that'll happen down the road. I think we just be realistic and maybe just be in the background a little bit. But I am not a parent. I am just an uncle. I have 7 nieces and nephews.
Oh, wow.
So it's hard for me to advise as I'm not a parent. But I think it gets challenging, Andrew, when the parents invest a lot of money in these travel teams and summer leagues, and then they want maybe some return on that investment.
Yeah, there's an expectation, right? I paid for this.
If it's totally doing it for a college scholarship, that may not be the best motives or motivations, because it's really, really, really hard to get a college scholarship.
Absolutely.
But maybe you get a college scholarship in music, in the band, in mathematics, in history. Esports now is you can get scholarships in esports, electronic sports, video games. But I would just say, support that child. Let them decide that interest. So let it be driven by the youth.
Yeah. Kenny, let's take a 30-second timeout. See if you can put that light on so we can see your pretty face again. See if you might have to go hit the button or something. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. Much better. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in one spot. But usually there's a lot of action going on in the weight room. But I do want to make sure the American flag is in the background.
There you go. I like it.
God bless America.
It is there and it's lit. Kenny, you mentioned about your morning routine, right? And great leaders, but great mornings, right? So walk me through your mornings, hydration, quiet time. What are some morning routine hacks that you would share today?
Pretty simple. I rise early, quite early.
What's early? Is 4, 5?
Usually by 5, I'm already walking on the track. I'm already training. So prepare the night before, and it's pretty simple, right? Get up, brush your teeth, wash your face. And I live quite close to campus, and I'm going to get my laps on the track, start darkness and finish in the sunrise. And there's no better feeling.
You're outside in Providence, Rhode Island, walking?
Well, we have a really nice track on campus.
But it's outside.
Yes, an outdoor track. It's not that cold yet. And
It
in the winter,
gets cold up there. I don't know if anybody told you. It gets cold.
But in the winter, you bundle up, and it makes you feel alive.
Wow, you walking in the mornings up there in the winter
In the mornings, too? And it's very, very quiet. Very rarely are there other people, maybe 1 or 2 other early birds. And I tell the athletes, and I quote a lot of people, but Mark Twain said, eat a live frog first thing in the morning. Do the hardest thing first. The rest of the day's downhill. But I really believe you use that early morning time before the day starts, before the emails roll in. With me, in the morning, I do my walk. It's me and the bread trucks and the milk trucks, the only ones that are really out there. And it's nothing simple. And then I'm on campus and get a shower, something simple and light to eat, and then I'm training my athletes. Because we have to train them before their first class. They're on campus, different from high school, different from middle school. They're already physically here. So we'll try to get some training in before that 8:30 class.
Are you hydrating before you walk, after you walk? What are you putting in your body before or after the walk?
Mostly water. I like fresh fruit and maybe a protein shake when I'm done, but nothing fancy. But I try to lay off preserved foods.
Yeah.
I tell the athletes, if you have to rip it open all the time, it's going to have preservatives as opposed to a banana and apple. But nothing beats water. Right? I tell the athletes, if it flies, swims, or runs, you can eat it.
Do they quote you? I would think they quote
you. They do. They bust my chops. But that means they're listening.
That's right. But these are fantastic quotes.
We always start the workout. I try to give them some kind of message. And they're paying attention. And at the end of the workouts, we often do history lessons. I was the history major in college, in political science. And I feel like I got to do more than just sports. Because anybody can do sets and repetitions.
Yeah.
Can we go a little bit beyond sports? So when Bill Russell passed away, the great basketball player, we spoke about Bill Russell. When the different athletes and different leaders that passed away. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg died a couple of years ago, I spoke about her and her background. And just to try to go beyond a little bit, beyond sports. And I spoke about Bill Russell. And our athletes barely knew who he was. And I said, read his books, guys. You should get his books. And they're like, what did he write about? And I go, that's one reason to read him, to learn about him and learn about his challenges back in the 60s and 70s. But you try to go outside the weight room. Isn't that what a coach, teacher, and a leader should do? Make them think. Make them think a little. But they tend to quote me a little bit. And you try to mix it up. You got to push the buttons, because if I train you for months on end, there's only so many pep talks and fired up speeches. So you try to push their buttons differently. Make them think a little. Not too much, but make them think a little.
And you're going down this road now, Kenny. We talked about nutrition. You talked about fitness. You talked about recovery. But now you're kind of getting into the mental part of it. How much of all of this that you're doing is mental strength versus physical strength?
Wow. It's a big, big part of it. Because most of us can do more than we really think.
Yeah.
We all have another rep in us, another sprint. There's more in us. Most of us have so much untapped physical ability. So maybe we're never really pushed. But I do think that, above the neck. I tell our athletes all the time, UConn, Villanova, Georgetown, you can only beat us twice a year. But you can beat yourself every day. Bobby Knight said that the toughest opponent is human nature, the person in the mirror. Because he or she can beat you every day. So you try to train their mind. And going back to what I said earlier about training, you mentioned about like adult fitness. I give them a challenge, but it's realistic enough that they can achieve it. So it's attainable, but it's out of that so-called comfort zone. So you try to hit the mental side of it intellectually and push them a little bit. Derek Jeter said, you don't just accidentally show up in the World Series. And I tell our team that. There's only so many teams get a bid on Selection Sunday in March.
Yeah.
You do not just accidentally show up in the World Series. It doesn't
Yeah.
just happen. So at this level, I have to push them.
You've mentioned Derek Jeter a few times. Have you watched The Captain? Have you seen that?
I do not have cable. I do not have a television. I don't watch any of it. I saw him play, so I don't know if I have to watch it.
You've seen enough.
But he was a winner.
Yeah.
He's a winner.
Oh, he is a winner for sure.
Sustained. And he's like a gentleman, team first. His teammates love him. You never read about him in the police blotter or any. It was always just baseball, competing, winning. But they may not listen to Kenneth White, the strength coach, my athletes. But if I could pepper in a Derek Jeter, or Kobe Bryant, or Bill Russell, or Billie Jean King, or Serena Williams, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if I can pepper someone in that might have a little more weight to me. I talked to our team a couple months ago about Nelson Mandela, and most of them had never heard of him, so we had to do a little bit bigger history lesson on who Nelson Mandela was.
Yeah.
If I can back it up with some people of significance, or those who really accomplished. I played high school basketball in Staten Island. That's nothing compared to a Derek Jeter, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Muhammad Ali.
And I could see then how the journal fits in what you're doing, because he does touch on these things. And, when Tom Brady retired, and here's October, right? You talk about Reggie Jackson. So I could see how the leadership journal can be useful for you. Kenny, we're coming down the stretch here. What was something you wanted to talk about that I did not ask you about?
Well, I think we covered a lot. If there are teachers on this, and I tell my young staff, it's not what you know, it's what you can transmit. There's an old saying the Jesuits say, if you want to teach Johnny Latin, you have to know Latin and you have to know Johnny. You got to get to know your people, my athletes. And same with the staff. I have 4 assistants, 4 colleagues, 4 assistant strength coaches under me or with me. You're a principal. You got to get to know your soldier. You got to get to know those people in the trenches with you. What motivates them to do the best job possible? Colin Powell said, a leader is a dealer in hope. Give them reason, optimism, enthusiasm. Give them the resources and the atmosphere, the environment to want to coach, to want to motivate, to want to lead. So I try to give my staff the freedom and the resources that they're comfortable to coach in their own way, with their own tactics and their own methods and their own personality. My father was an athletic director for many, many years. He told me when I first got into coaching, he said, your job is to make your staff's job easier. What do they need to make their job easier? Whether it's resources, support, pat on the back, slice of pizza, and just whatever it could be to boost them up. But Colin Powell said a leader is a dealer in hope. And that's pretty good right there.
That's pretty good. Kenny, you have some really good quotes here. This has been great. Let's get to rapid fire here. Get you down the stretch.
Rapid fire. Here we go.
This is like you shooting them threes on that night. Rapid fire. We're gonna get as many in as we can. 17 out of 24. Here we go. I know you're a reader. What was the last book you read?
I read so many, ton of them. But what if I recommend is True by Costa Kennedy about Jackie Robinson. Must read, high school, must read for middle school. It just came out this spring. It's called True. And it's 4 separate years of Jackie Robinson's life. The guy picks 4 separate years. It's really, really good. Actually, our administrative assistant who set me up with this, her son in 6th grade is reading it right now. Wow. And he reveres Jackie Robinson as a 6th grader. I read all kinds of books, novels, fiction, sports, memoirs. But if I had to pick one book for this year, I would say True by Jackie Robinson and anything written by Bill Russell.
Bam. Favorite dish?
Favorite dish as in a meal? Depends on the company. The company's more important than the food.
Nice. Good answer. Wow. Kenny, this is show 225. No one's ever said that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, have me back for 226. We're running out of time.
You've traveled a lot for basketball. Where's a favorite place to travel and get away to?
Favorite place to travel is 7th Avenue, New York, New York. The city's so nice, we named it twice. The Garden. I don't know when it became MSG, but to New Yorkers, it's the Garden. Nothing beats the Garden when you come out of the locker room, out of the tunnel. It's got a different sound system, different lighting than any other place in the world. I'm getting chills talking about the Garden.
You're getting fired up.
I'm getting fired up because our goal is to play Saturday night in the Big East Final.
That's right.
But even as a kid, going to the Garden with the red seats, the blue seats, the orange seats, no place is like the Garden. But somewhere it became MSG. I don't think it's MSG to the real New Yorkers.
The best coaches are the best because fill in the blank.
I mentioned it earlier, they give their athletes freedom. They trust their athletes. They know what buttons to push, when to back off. They motivate and inspire without beating you down. They let you play. Pete Carroll, the football coach. Be yourself, but be a team. Let them be themselves.
You've mentioned a lot of passions today. What's a pet peeve of yours? What's something that gets under your skin?
Well, I don't want to offend anybody listening. If I have a pet peeve, I might piss somebody off. But if you step on a basketball court or a baseball field, have your laces tied. Nothing's worse than stepping on that court and the kid has to bend down and tie his shoes. I learned at a young age from my dad, you step on that court, you're ready.
Be ready.
And as I get older, you and I having a conversation or we're having a conversation with someone else and that person pulls out their phone in mid-sentence and looks at their phone. That's a pet peeve because we've lost our way, I think, with that interaction, human interaction.
Yeah.
But I probably have pet peeves that people piss that that they don't like that I do. But I think when you step on that court, you're prepared, your laces are tied, your flip-flops are off, you're ready to go.
At 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, I feel, fill in the blank.
I feel great. I probably already got I know I got my workout in. My newspapers are read. I'm probably going to train my athletes. We probably have practice at 9 or 10 a.m. At 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, I feel great.
Best purchase under $100 that has had a great impact on your life.
Any good book. They're all under $100.
You're a reader for sure.
Yeah. Well, Mark Twain, I'll leave you on Mark Twain. Mark Twain said there's no difference between the man that doesn't read books and the man who can't read books.
Wow.
There's no difference between the person who doesn't read them as opposed to who can't read. So the best purchase under is any book.
Wow. People's reaction when they hear your accent and they learn you're from Staten Island.
Forget about it. Many say they've never been there. Or they drive through on the way to Newark Airport. Or they associate me with that reality show, Jersey Shore. So I'm not from Jersey Shore and I don't know the Impractical Jokers. But I am a Staten Islander, I'm a New Yorker, even though I've been around Island 20 years.
How much New England, New York do you get up there?
Well, the Yankees win more than they lose to the Red Sox, so. But no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. It's good.
Favorite pizza joint on Staten Island?
Favorite pizza joint. I'm from the South Shore. You got to go to Lee's Tavern. But wherever I am on Staten Island, I'm getting on any of those bridges, and there's a full pizza pie in the passenger seat. Danino's on the North Shore. Lee's on the South Shore. Joe and Pat. You can't go wrong. But usually when I'm on Staten Island, I get on that bridge. There's a full pizza in the passenger seat. And it's usually gone by the time I get to the
It's not full for long.
No.
The Big East means blank to me.
Well, years ago, I remember Gary Williams, who coached at Boston College. He said, you want to have games that play in arenas big enough to have organ music. And they play the organ at the Garden. So the Big East is organ music and big-time atmosphere, big-time games. School spirit. Fans are going nuts. And maybe that's as close as I get to the action at my age. But it's close enough because you feel like you're part of it. But the Big East is school spirit, with rivalries, the old school rivalries, and it's fun. Yeah. It's a step down from pro sports.
Some would argue that maybe not, but the Big
Just
East is the best. Yeah. 2 words to describe yourself.
No shortcuts. I hope my athletes would say that about me. No shortcuts. And hopefully they learn that from me. If anything, I'm prepared. I never claim to be the best strength coach, the best at what I do, but I like to think I have the most pride. There's no
I love it.
shortcuts. I learned that from my dad.
Something you're curious about.
As I get older, other cultures, hoping when I have more time to travel a little more, to learn more about people from other cultures.
Something about Kenny White that people do not know about.
Well, most people on this podcast don't know me. My siblings won't even know this, but I'm actually trying to learn a second language. I took Spanish in high school, took Spanish in college in New York, Spanish everywhere, Spanish on the subway ads. But it's a heavily Portuguese community here. A lot of my athletes on the soccer teams are from Portugal. I have a very, very close friend who's Portuguese descent. She's kind of steered me towards learning another language, and it's very stimulating.
Portuguese.
I'm trying to work on a little bit. What's a heavily Portuguese community up here.
Portuguese is tough.
It's challenging, but it's close to Spanish.
Hey, start with the food.
Comida, it's a meal. Comida, food in Spanish.
Well, you speak a second language. It's called Staten Island Ease. Kenny, yes. you dropped a lot of quotes here. I don't know if I could just have you end with one, but give us one more here to wrap up the show.
Let's wrap it up with one of my favorite poets, an American treasure, Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou said, "When you learn, teach. When you get, give." And that's what I try to make my career. I'm not perfect at it, but when you get, give. Isn't that teaching? Isn't that coaching? When you learn, teach. When you get, give. Luckily, I saw that modeled in my mom and dad in our house just about every day.
And you did that today here in this time we had together. Kenny, it was an honor to speak with you. I'm so happy we finally got to connect.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thank you. It's a lot of fun. It all started with the journal. The written word brought us together.
That's right. Readers, leaders are readers. This is Kenneth White, everyone, Providence College. Let's root on the Friars this year. Kenny, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you.
Thanks. I loved it. Appreciate it. Go Friars. Go Staten Island.
Stay on the line a second. Check him out. Hall of Famer, Monsignor Farrell, Vermont, and certainly 20 years at Providence College. Kenny, I appreciate the amazing quotes. Keep rolling, friends. If I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out at Andrew Murata 21. This was show number 225. Again, a shout out to the Coaching and Leadership Journal. That discount code is Murata 20 for your discount. Kenny, we're going to sign off. You stay on the line, my friend. All right. Thank you, everybody. Keep surviving and thriving.